Hi everybody. So I'm here at Milk Market and I'm making one of my favorite desserts. I know it's Luca, my son's favorite dessert, and we have it on at like 3 of the restaurants, and so people love it. So tiramisu, it's really simple to make. We're gonna make a sabayon. We're gonna soak some ladyfingers. You can make ladyfingers by making a genoise sponge cake, or you can simply just buy ladyfingers. I find it super easy to just buy the ladyfingers. So there's a little bit of dip, so tiramisu is coffee and a little bit of cocoa. So the first thing we want to do is I just have like 2.5 cups of regular brewed coffee. I'm going to add about a cup of sugar to that. Tiramisu is not a real sweet dessert. I'm just going to give this a stir. So I'm almost making a coffee simple syrup. We'll let that sit, and that's what we'll dunk our ladyfingers in. So to get started, I have 12 ounces of egg yolks, which is about 12 egg yolks. So each egg yolk is about an ounce. And I have 12 ounces of sugar. And I have about 2 ounces of white wine. And so what we're going to make now is the sabayon that's the base of tiramisu. And what we want to do is whisk this all together. Put it over a double boiler. If you have a double boiler that fits your KitchenAid, so much easier. And we're just going to whisk this. You don't want to walk away because the water will curdle the eggs, so you have to constantly stand and whisk. And what we're doing is looking for this to get about 3 times the volume when we're finished. So it's going to probably get about 1.5 times. So you can see it comes up to about here or here. When we finish and go to the KitchenAid, it'll probably be up somewhere in here. So we've got our eggs and our sugar and our white wine, and you can see it's getting nice and fluffy, and it has come up to about 1/4 the size of what it is. So now I want to dip my finger in, and I'm looking for it to be about 180 to 190 degrees. And that's about where this is. You can see how thick it's getting. So now that's nice and hot, and I stood here and stirred the whole time so I didn't have any chance to let the eggs curdle. So now I can move it to my KitchenAid. And now I'm just going to go at super high heat, high speed, to really whip this. And this is really the only cooking you need to do when you're making tiramisu. So while that's going, we can get our tin ready. So these are the tins we do typically for our family size portions. These are also the sizes that we do to ship across the country. So if you're in New Jersey and you might know me and need a tiramisu, go online to find it. But super simple. So I have my coffee and sugar. The sugar's dissolved into the warm coffee. I like to do it while this is warm, and many trains of thought on this. I like a super light dip of the cookie, just like that. I don't like to sit. Some people love to sit and soak the cookies, but when I do this, I still have a nice cookie shell to it, or cookie crunch, and as the cream sits on top of it, it'll soften and have more of a cake texture. If I let one soak too long, and I am making these kind of personal because my son Luca is a tiramisu expert, so I make it the way he likes it and kind of the way I like it. I also like a lot of ladyfingers in my tiramisu. I like it to be a pretty cakey tiramisu. So we'll check back on our sabayon, and you can see it's getting super thick. And what we're looking for is what they call ribbons. So when I'm looking for volume, so now I know that we're about 2/3 of the way of where we were. As it gets more volume, it'll also start to turn a little bit paler, a little white-ish. And that's okay, so it's not going to be that bright yellow tiramisu that sometimes you see. Mine is a little more pale. So we're getting close on that. And this is also still warm, which is important. Okay, so this has been going, and if you come around here, you can see how thick it is. And when I was talking about that ribbon phase, you can see it still forms a ribbon when it drips down. It doesn't just dissolve right into the batter. So this could go a touch longer, but I think it's good enough to go. My tiramisu is very simple. A lot of people put whipped cream in theirs. Mine does not have whipped cream because I like it to be pretty thick. So now I'm going to start chunking in some mascarpone cheese, the Italian cream cheese. So I went with 12 ounces of sugar, 12 ounces of egg yolks, and I have 24 ounces of mascarpone. Give it a high speed to try and get all the lumps out because you don't want it to be lumpy. So I think we're about there. I don't see very many lumps. A good stir from the bottom to make sure you don't have any chunks underneath it. And I can see that it's super smooth. And my mascarpone is incorporated all the way. If I were going to add whipped cream to make it super light, I would add it now. I would also probably be adding some gelatin. Not a big fan of the gelatin tiramisu because I think it has a funky mouthfeel to it, but it will help to keep it solidified and lighter. So if you like a light, fluffy tiramisu, chances are it has whipped cream and some gelatin in it to keep it that way. So now we're ready to start assembling. So I have a pastry bag. If you don't have a pastry bag, you can easily just scoop this onto it. Super creamy. Yeah. So even though it had 12 ounces of sugar, which looks like a lot, it's really not, because when you think of mascarpone, it's super bland and rich, so it really takes away from the sugar. So we'll start with this. Be careful that you don't go too big on your hole that you cut, otherwise it gushes out. Okay. So now I'm going to go with just another layer. And I'm just going to go right down the middle. And then I like a layer of cocoa in here. Just a light spritz. And then get a little more liberal with the top, with the sabayon. Give it a little tamp down to get it all to settle. And then the final step for the tiramisu to me is, a lot of times in the restaurant we do this right before we serve it, but if we're gonna freeze this for shipping, super liberal frosting or drizzle of cocoa powder. Just remember, this cocoa powder has no sugar in it, so it's also tart, which complements the sweet. It is best served after you've let it sit in your refrigerator for about 5 or 6 hours to let it really set and get cold. Because remember, everything is still kind of a little warm, so you can see it jiggles. Once it gets cold, it'll set up and be really creamy and rich. So don't be impatient and dig in right away, although it's really great, but that's kind of what you have this for, the leftover. and you make a quick one for yourself to eat. And then this would be our tiramisu that we sell here at Milk Market, or that we do at Luca or Osteria Marco, or that we ship across the country. So if you're hungry for tiramisu, come and get one.